here we're going to jump into the specifics of the actual trig ratios. And just to review, let's talk about how we label the different sides of a triangle. So the side opposite the 90-degree angle is always going to be the hypotenuse. Then to label your opposite and adjacent, it depends on where your reference angle is. So if theta is my reference angle in this bottom left corner, then the side that's opposite that theta, that reference angle, is going to be my opposite. And then the side that's adjacent to that reference angle is my adjacent. And now that that's established, let's go ahead and introduce the idea of all of our specific trig ratios. So the phrase that we use to help us remember is SOHCAHTOA, and it's broken up into 3 separate sections. So first of all, the SOH stands for the sine of an angle is equal to the opposite divided by the hypotenuse. And so if I take a look at this here, my reference angle is angle A. So my reference angle is angle A, and we see that the sine is equivalent to the opposite divided by the hypotenuse, and so the opposite of angle A is side A. And then the hypotenuse in this triangle is side C. So that means that the sine of angle A is equal to the opposite of A divided by the hypotenuse. So the opposite of A is side A, and the hypotenuse is side C. So A divided by C is going to be the ratio that's the sine of angle A. Next, moving on to the CAH. So if here is my CAH in the SOHCAHTOA, that tells me that the cosine of an angle is equal to the adjacent, there's the A, divided by the hypotenuse, there's the H. And so the cosine of angle A, again the same reference angle, and so from this reference angle, I'm now looking for the adjacent and the hypotenuse. So the adjacent is going to be side B, the hypotenuse is side C. And so that's why the cosine of A is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse, B divided by C. Okay, and then finally, let's go ahead and talk about the tangent. So for the tangent, the TOA, the T stands for tangent, and then tangent is equal to the opposite divided by the adjacent. So same reference angle, my opposite, A, divided by adjacent, B. So the tangent of A is equal to A divided by B. So let's look at some examples. So if we start with a reference angle of angle A, and I want to find the sine. So then I'm going to go ahead and look over here in my SOHCAHTOA, and sine starts with S, so I'm going to look for the S, and I'm going to use SOH. So the S is for sine, the O is for opposite over hypotenuse. So I want opposite on top and hypotenuse on bottom. So my opposite is A. So let's go ahead and put that on top. Okay, next, let me get my pointer here. Okay, so I did the opposite. My next is my hypotenuse. So hypotenuse is going to be 19. And in this particular case, the opposite was a variable. It was A, I didn't know it, but the hypotenuse was known. It was 19. And that's okay. Sometimes we will know both sides. Sometimes we will not know both sides. What's important now is just the setup and just kind of understanding what to put where. Okay, so next let's go ahead and do the cosine. Again, it's from the same reference angle of angle A. So I'm going to start in the same position. And the cosine, well, that starts with a C, so I'm going to use the C phrase here, which is CAH. So in the SOHCAHTOA, I'm going to use CAH. C is for cosine, A is for adjacent, H is for hypotenuse. So I want the adjacent on top and hypotenuse on bottom. So from angle A, what's my adjacent? Adjacent is kind of the one that's not the opposite or hypotenuse. And so my adjacent in this case is going to be 5. So 5 is going to go on top. And then a over h, so my hypotenuse again is 19. All right, final one here for reference angle A is tangent. So the tangent starts with a t. I'm going to go to this t, and the tangent is going to be the opposite divided by adjacent. So from a reference angle of angle A, what's the opposite? Side A divided by adjacent, which is side 5. So it's going to be A divided by 5. Okay, let's go ahead and practice with a different reference angle. How about a reference angle of B? Okay, so if I'm going to do the sine is going to be the opposite divided by hypotenuse. So what's my opposite over hypotenuse? So from a reference angle B, my opposite is 5, my hypotenuse is always 19. So that's going to be 5 over 19. And then for the cosine of B, well, the cosine is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse. So from B, the adjacent is going to be A right here, and the hypotenuse is 19. So that's going to be A over 19. Finally, for the tangent from a reference angle of B, tangent is going to be opposite divided by adjacent. So from B, the opposite, 5 over adjacent A. So that would be 5 divided by A.